Share sound. All right. Hey, good evening. This is Kennedy. I'm a certified rehab counselor, and today we're gonna be touching on a special topic. It's provided by Mr. John Evans, who I'm going to introduce to you here shortly. So in addition to all the material that I've uploaded and shared so far with people for the CRC exam, there are some other newer materials that weren't quite covered in previous lectures. And so it's going to be my go with the help of other additional professionals to talk about those topics that weren't previously covered in the next few upcoming weeks to months to prepare for the next exam. So with that, John, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and share with us what you're doing today?
Sure, thanks, Ken. Hi, everyone. My name is John Evans. I am here in Michigan. I am a limited licensed professional counselor working towards my CRC here in Michigan. Currently, I work with homeless veterans. We provide housing. We're contracted with the VA. I have a plethora of knowledge in regards to employment services as we communicate with the VA. We, of course, actually work with them in regards to the CWT program, which is compensated work therapy. The CRC is important to me because being certified, you advance very well in different areas, and you're very knowledgeable. And so I thought it was important to share this information because I actually took the test and failed a couple of days ago. I'm okay now. I feel empowered, and I feel that sharing this information will help not only me but help others to gain a little bit of information in regards to job accommodations. So this is the Job Accommodation Network, and it's the leading source of free, expert, and confidential guidance on job accommodations and disability employment issues. Now, the JAN, it helps employers recognize the valuable contributions that qualified workers with disabilities add to the workforce by providing accommodation solutions, trusted strategies, and practical guidance on the Americans with Disability Act. Job accommodations play a vital role in creating inclusive workplaces, advancing the goals of the ADA, and increasing employment opportunities for people with disabilities. Now, JAN serves across the United States and actually around the world for 40 years. What makes them so just outstanding? They provide free one-on-one practical guidance and technical assistance on job accommodation solutions. Of course, Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act, because we know that there are a lot of employers out here that are still not in compliance, and related legislation, self-employment. We have a lot of people with disabilities that are self-employed and are entrepreneurships and are offered entrepreneurship abilities. Next. Now they provide what JAN provides individual consultation to assist the following. Employees and their representatives seeking guidance on practical ways to engage in the interactive process, which we'll talk about, to provide job accommodation solutions and comply with Title I of the ADA. Individuals with health conditions and disabilities seeking information about job accommodation solutions, employment rights under the ADA, and self-employment and entrepreneurship opportunities, and family members and rehabilitation, medical education, and other professionals in their effort to support successful employment outcomes for individuals with health conditions and disabilities. So they offer a lot of consulting here. Now, this is the most important, one of the most important parts of this information that I'm providing. This is an A to Z disabilities and accommodations. Now, they have this on the website as well, which you'll see at the end of the website. And when you go there, you'll see following A to Z listings of disability. And they'll give the topic, the disability, the limitations, and they really kind of touch on the disability, almost like a little manual. This information is designed to help employers and individuals determine effective accommodations and comply with Title I of the Americans with Disability Act. Next. Now, what we're going to do here is these are some live situations, real life examples anyway, that we're going to go through. A postal employee with PTSD requested accommodations to help him deal with the current flashbacks. His flashbacks were triggered by the smell of gasoline and the noise from the mail truck. The employee tried wearing a respirator to give him a clean air supply. He also tried wearing headphones to reduce the noise from the truck, but he still experienced stress and edginess. So, Jan to the rescue suggested a position transfer as an accommodation. Jan also suggested following this employee to take allowing this employee to take a break when he experienced extreme anxiety and allow him to use relaxation and visualization techniques in a private space on the job. And that is very important. Ken, I'm sure you're familiar with relaxation and visualization techniques. I think we have Emily that does some relaxation things there. Yeah, so next slide.
Right. And just to kind of add on to that, uh, Emily Sussman, she just also recently took her CRC exam and she passed it. So she'll be talking in the future about some of her mindfulness meditation. And in terms of preparing for the CRC, Jen also gives you a great tool to kind of focus on certain domains, which we'll discuss here towards the end as well. So like that, this will give you a bit of a leverage when you're studying and preparing for the exam. So thank you, John. I'm going to take this back to you.
Okay, well, let's go with another example of a situation and solution. We have a building manager here with PTSD decided to bring her service dog to work due to medical related reasons. Next slide. The employer was concerned about the animal being a distraction to other employees and affecting the new hire's workflow. The employer and employee agreed to a trial period to assess where the animal could be in the workplace without causing any disruption. So we didn't get it all the way resolved, but at least that's a start there. So that's awesome. Next slide. Here's a situation with autism. An applicant on the autism spectrum applied for a research position with the chemical company. Next slide. Well, he has verbal communication deficit. However, he can communicate with handwriting and emails, which is awesome. Next slide. However, the employers wants to provide accommodations during the first stage interview, which is pretty typical of how they work, which involve answering questions from a 3-person search committee. Go figure. Next slide. Jan to the rescue once again suggests providing the questions in advance, makes sense, and allowing the applicant to furnish written responses during the interview.
So,
Now,
John, I have a question for you before we take a step forward. I want to just go back here to the situation with the service dog. How did the Jan system help in with helping the employer agree to a trial period for the service dog?
say that again, I'm sorry.
How did the Jan system assist the employer in allowing the new employee to use a service dog? How would it have helped?
Well, the accommodations, well, for one, it's the law. And the dog pretty much is, as far as the mental aspect with the PTSD, assist the dog. If
Okay,
that makes sense. Because of
right.
her PTSD, that's a mental health condition. And by law, she's allowed to have the dog there.
Okay. So, and I mentioned that because there is a big conversation happening both between politics and medical field. And of course, the cultural shift here is that there seems to be a mix up between what a service dog is versus what a support animal is. And the ADA does clearly define that in terms of what is a service animal versus what is an emotional support animal. So say, John, if you were the employer and you didn't know the difference between the two, what would you, what would you, let's say, what tools would you want to use to help identify? So at least this way you're doing the right accommodations while abiding with the law.
Well, honestly, I would need this information from Jan to make the right decisions, because currently right now we're in the position where we do have a a outside agency that comes in with a dog to assist those, and I'm not sure, like you mentioned, if that would be considered emotional or what. So I'm not really too sure about that. How I would handle that without guidance from Jan. That would have to have them come in. That if I was in charge, call them and have a consultant, have them come in and assess the situation, and we sit down and have a big group meeting and talk and work it out.
Ah, sounds good. Sounds good. So Jan itself, even let's say as a rehab counselor, if you're working as a job developer, you can use Jan also as a tool to kind of help clarify. If the person, by the way, just to kind of help you with some of that military stuff, if a service veteran if a military veteran does have a service dog to treat for PTSD, that dog's typically trained in carrying that person for PTSD. They are a service dog. Now, there's
Mm-hmm.
also emotional support animals where they're untrained. But like you said, Jan can be very beneficial for that. So appreciate your input. Let's go ahead. I'll let you continue from here. I think this is where the slide you were at, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep. So let's see. Jan suggested providing the questions in advance. Yeah. And allowing the applicant to furnish written responses during the interview. So I thought that was a great solution. All right. So basically, with those examples, what we're pretty much looking at is what are the limitations that the employee is experiencing? How does the limitations affect the employee and the employee's job performance? And what specific job tasks are problematic, excuse me, as a result of these limitations? What accommodations are available to reduce or eliminate these problems? Are all possible resources being used to determine possible accommodations? Um, and oftentimes we're going to get into situations where they're not going to be used. All possible resources are not going to be uh, even factored in. Once accommodations are in place, would it be useful to meet with the employee to evaluate the effectiveness of the accommodation and to determine whether additional accommodations are needed? Whereas as a rehabilitation counselor, yes, that's your job. But is it practical? That's a good question in my opinion, because with the caseload, the heavy caseload, do you have the time to do that? On a uh, I guess from the standpoint of what we're looking at here with heavy caseload, I'm not sure if that how feasible that is. Maybe a real bit someone from the rehabilitation counseling field could probably answer that, how they would handle that situation, or how often they would uh, visit and evaluate the effectiveness. Because I'm sure they do evaluate it, but how often? And then last, do supervisory personnel and employees need training? Next. Now here's our few accommodations that we're pretty much familiar with. Acquiring or modifying equipment or devices such as adjusting a desk height to accommodate an employee who uses a wheelchair, or providing an employee with quadriplegia mouth stick device to help on their computer. Justifying or modifying test and training materials, for example, providing materials in alternate formats such as Braille, CD, or large print. And as we know, the CRC exam does offer more time, so they kind of modify the test and they do other things as well. As I saw when I went and took the test, I saw the devices. They also another example is providing assistive technology or devices such as computer screen readers for employees with visual impairments, a specific telephone that is compatible with employee hearing aid. This does not include personnel assistive devices such as hearing aids or prosthetics. Next, was you going to add something or say something, Ken? Did you want to say
Um,
something?
Actually, I do want to kind of step back on here real
Okay,
quick.
go ahead.
And this is just from the student standpoint and also from the like being I want to say a job developer, kind of, well, yeah, I did a little bit of job development there.
Mm-hmm,
Some of the problems that occur, especially with many employers helping individual disabilities, is the first thing their bias is how much is all that equipment going to cost them
mm-hmm,
to accommodate.
correct.
If I have to give somebody with a blind person a specialized computer to do certain performance functions that my software is not compatible with their stuff, why am I going to hire the individual? They may
Mm-hmm,
not say that outright, but that's something that's in their mind. How are we going to be able to accommodate them? How much is this going to cost? Is it going to take up the company's insurance policies to hire this individual with disability?
mm-hmm,
What is the severity limitation of the disability? And that's is just something where the JAN system can come into and kind of uh,
mm-hmm.
help demystify some of those biases and those pretenses in terms of, instead of asking those type of questions, they should be asking what resources can help my company to ensure that my individual continues working for me and
Yes,
without so much extensive work.
yes.
There's even some people that I've helped would get hired that, they needed a job coach with them.
Mm-hmm,
And it was weird at first, but the job coach would typically help bridge the gap between the employer, the employees, and the new hire, which is the person with disabilities, to build that strong relationship. And so,
yes.
in terms of being a vocal rehab counselor, if the individual with disability wants that assistance, or if you're in the role for that to do that kind of assistance, the rehab counselor does have the ability to bridge those connections if they're good with it. But again, that goes back to Jan. So I don't want to take too much for you, but I just want to kind of elaborate on there for that. And I'm gonna go
Yeah,
ahead because this goes right next into your next slide here. So go for it.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, accommodations and compliance. Well, we got these things set in place, but who makes sure that these things are going accordingly? Making sure that employers are doing what they need to do. Well, we got the role of Equal Employer Opportunity Commission, EEOC. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission enforces laws that make discrimination illegal in the workplace. The commission oversees all types of work situations, including hiring, firing, promotions, harassment, training, wages, and benefits. In an effort to determine effective accommodations, the Employment Opportunity Commission recommends that employees use an interactive process, which simply means that employees with disabilities who request accommodations work to come up with accommodations. And this is awesome because we definitely from the past in the history in the 70s, uh, with all the things that went on with the discrimination and all that, we definitely needed the government to step in and put some overseers over and making sure people are doing right. So recognizing an accommodation request in an effort to determine effective accommodations, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission recommends that employers use an interactive process, which simply means that employers and employees with disabilities who request accommodations work together to come up with accommodations. Hey, I have a disability. I have a spinal cord injury. Can't sit too long. Blah blah blah. Can you help me out here? Once an accommodation request has been received, the employer should gather whatever information is necessary to process the request. Necessary information may include documentation of the disability and need for accommodations. Now, once the employer has identified the employee's limitations that is causing the problem and has identified what the problem is, then the employer is ready to explore accommodation options. And as Ken mentioned, we have to be careful that cost isn't a factor there. That's one of the main things. At this step, employers should be open to new ideas and new ways of doing things. This is the time to brainstorm and consider what might work. Now, choosing accommodation, once accommodation options have been explored, the employer must choose what accommodation to implement. If there's more than one option, the employer should consider the preference of the employee. I'll repeat that. The employer should consider the preference of the employee, but it's not mandated. However, the employer gets to choose among effective options and choose, for example, the lowest cost accommodation. Now, once the accommodations has been chosen, it's time to implement the accommodations. This is very important to the success of the accommodation. If equipment is involved, then it needs to be properly installed and the employee needs to be trained in its proper use. If the accommodation involves a schedule change or policy modification, then certain managers or supervisors may need to know of the change to effectively implement it. If the accommodation involves an outside service, someone needs to make sure the service is provided promptly and effectively. If the accommodation is a reassignment, then the employee may need time to acclimate to the new job. You know, if I was working in human resources and I was in charge of, with this in this area here, I would be just so happy to just know about if I didn't have that information. But this is some very important information. So I just felt that this was important, and hopefully, we got one more. I'm sorry, monitoring. Now, important but often forgotten part of I just forgot. An important but often part of the interactive process is monitoring accommodations after they are in place. In some cases, an accommodation stops stop being effective for various reasons, such as the employee's limitations change, workplace equipment changes, the job changes, the workplace itself changes, or the accommodation becomes an undue hardship for the employer. And in conclusion, job accommodations play a vital role in creating inclusive workplaces, advancing the goals of the ADA, and increasing employment opportunities for people. Whether it's to help alleviate back pain or decrease neck and shoulder stress, many employers think that a certain piece of equipment, such as a stick stand desk, is a cure-all ergonomic solution for every employee's medical condition. While a sit-stand desk can alleviate many health conditions, it may not be the best solution to help every employee. And that's pretty much it. And if you have if you want to know more about that website, there it is, askjan.org, the number. And this is their 40th year anniversary, by the way.
I say let's go ahead and take a look at it. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, this is their 40th year anniversary. Just so ironic, I just happened to go ahead and look at it and then saw that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been out that long.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, does JAN apply to public and federal sector, or does it also apply to the private sector?
It applies to public and private sector.
Okay. Yeah, because like in CRC.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, because in CRCs, I've seen a couple of questions where some of them were related to federal government jobs, while some of the questions are related to more private. So like in terms of like forensics, in the field of forensics, you're not really using the job accommodations, but you could use JAN to see whether or not the employer had implemented, let's say the person was an injured worker and they were providing accommodations, then was that injured worker at fault of getting hurt, or is the individual at fault? And you can also use JAN to see if they were following this, yes or no. You know, were they using the recommendations provided, yes or no?
Correct. Definitely. It's a great resource.
Mm-hmm.
A reference.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about an A to Z list. So where do I go?
There it is. Right to keep over next to 88. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how will this help another individual or another candidate to prepare for the CRC?
Well, let's go with let's click on post-traumatic stress, since we've been dealing with that. Well, for one, it kind of describes the disability in itself, so it would help you in that area. It also, if you scroll down, would help you with the accommodations component. Accommodating. I didn't have any questions on the CRC about accommodations, but it's always good to know about the executive functioning, the functional limitations of the person with the disability, because they provide you with all the things that you could try with the person with the disability. So it gives you a general idea of what type of interventions you might want to use. And then,
Okay.
as you can see, all those publications, just a lot of information.
Okay, so this is like a central hub to read related research or information that other employees have or employers have dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so thinking about this in a practical way outside CRC, would this be human resource looking at this, or would this be like a hiring manager? Who would be the specific audience apart from the rehab counselor?
I would say uh, someone who's facing some disability issues, as far as agency or corporation that has no knowledge of what to do.
Okay, and so if the employer doesn't know about this, who could they talk to about like asking for Jan? Say they didn't know who Jan is. Who would you suggest they consult with?
Well, if I'm a rehabilitation counselor, I should know about Jan, and if I'm doing outreach and out in the public, as a rehabilitation counselor, it would be me. But I'm not sure as far as their marketing, how they go about it. You don't see a lot of commercials out there about Jan, so I'm not sure.
Okay, yeah, rehab counselor is one of them. It's definitely something that an individual with a disability can use to read up on it. And if they're not sure how to accommodate them, they can refer HR to Jan. Or
Yes.
remember the EEOC? The
Yeah.
EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, can also talk with those companies as well, because they have sections for businesses, employers, state government, federal, state. So they have resources for all particular sectors of industries.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You're right.
So, but
Yeah.
in terms of preparing for the CRC, this is a good little central place to kind of touch on some of the domains in terms of job accommodation, service and training to employers, business engagement predominantly. So if I was studying for the CRC and upcoming, I think you guys are taking it what in April?
March.
March, this could be a good tool to help
It
study
is.
this domain for business engagement,
It is.
matter
Yeah.
speaking. So, all right. Well, hey, John, I thank you so much for your time and sharing this today. I know this was your own presentation you made, and of course, there's some additional
Yeah.
revisions. And with
It wasn't
that,
the best, but I did the best I could consider it.
yeah. No, you did really good. So I appreciate it. And I know this is going to
Okay.
help other people who watch the YouTube channel for their CRCC study group, in case you
All
don't
right.
know. And if you want to share with anybody else, there is a YouTube channel where this will be loaded. And it's literally called the CRCC study group. And so if you'd like to subscribe to the channel, this presentation, as well as the slides, if it's okay with you, John, uh,
Oh yeah.
the
Sure.
slides will be uploaded in my share drive. You would just have to reach out to me, Kennedy Carici. But the video will be uploaded here on our website here, or our YouTube page, and it'll be called Jan. Okay, and that way you can start following us. So I definitely encourage you, everybody here, to like and subscribe. John, is there anything else you'd like to say before I let you go?
Just keep studying and stay with it. This is a wonderful tool. This is a wonderful resource, and this group is awesome. Well, it's all coming together, and this all pass.
Yeah,
Have a
John,
good night.
and I think you're gonna do good too in your next round. So I have confidence in you. It's not
Thank you.
easy
Thank
passing it the first time, but
you.
I know
No,
you got it.
yeah. Let me know what you think about that. What I sent you.
All right, so I'm gonna stop
Okay.
recording.